Okay. So moving along through the medieval period, we come suddenly upon a whole new sense of God given to us by the mystics of Tzfat. You know them as the Sapphic mystics. Okay. Anybody remember anything about Tzfat mysticism?
Joseph Cairo.
Joseph Cairo. What do you know about Joseph Cairo? Because it's a great story.
All I know is that he was the one that, well, I know most associated with the mystics in Tzfat. And
He's a mystic. He's not one of the primary.
I think the Shulchan Aruch.
The Shulchan Aruch. What is the Shulchan Aruch?
That's the last codification of Jewish law.
Correct. What's the importance of that when we're talking about mysticism? You got a mystic writing the most legalistic book in the history of Judaism, practically. So the mystics are not peripheral. When I grew up in Reform Judaism, mysticism was garnished. You didn't talk about it, you didn't acknowledge it, you didn't know about it. But the mystics are a prime part throughout, that's what I've been trying to show, the history of Judaism. So Tzfat, which becomes the center of legalism, rabbinic Judaism, creating the Shulchan Aruch, so Jews can travel all over the world with these 6 volumes and be able to keep the law right with them if they have any questions. They can leave home. Also becomes the center of mysticism. And you know the man who makes the major change in a very brief lifetime. You may not know his name, but you know his work. Theurgic mysticism means that for the first time in Jewish history, God needs humans, men and women, because each one of us has a task. Our task is to redeem the shards, the sparks, that happened in the first act of creation by God, creating what are called sphirot, the different spheres, S-P-H-E-R-E-S, spheres. But the Hebrew word is very close, it's sphirot. God created sphirot, and these sphirot initially couldn't handle the task, and they broke. And there are shards in the universe. And Loria says it's our job to redeem those shards. Jews being Jews, as from the moment of first initiation of our peoplehood, we respond to the people among whom we live. Some respond positively, some respond negatively, but all of us respond to the milieu. That's not good or bad, that just is. Right? So the reality is that we live among non-Jews. And sometimes we've lived among Muslims. More often we've lived among Christians. Certainly in modern times we have lived among those people who study philosophy through the eyes of Kant and Kierkegaard. And thus an abyss has been created, in my opinion, for those of us who have joined the group that accepts this kind of thinking, and those who do not. So I'm suggesting that depending on which world you join, as of about the 1800s, you're in a different camp. Now the mystics are out here somewhere. And that's a different camp. You can be from this world and be a mystic. You can be from that world and be a mystic. You can just be a mystic and be in neither world. But we've got all these different worlds now at work. I mean, there are some truly, truly great statements that come up in contemporary literature about God. The dominant one. Everything you say about God is a metaphor. Because they know God and they believe from their perspective, how could anybody not be like me and not know God? So when the man across the street says to me, I've never had an experience with God, they look at you and they say, of course you've had an experience with God, you just didn't know it was God.
Can't beat that. It's hard to beat.
That's a full house.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's no response to that kind of an argument. These, the people I keep referring to as the non-traditionalists, we're in a different world. And you can't talk to the people over here. I'm not even sure I can understand them, with rare exception. Yitz Greenberg. Several of you probably have heard of Rabbi Yitz. Yitz and I were friends for a long time. We're acquaintances probably at this point. But Yitz is a very special, special man. Yitz is an Orthodox rabbi, modern Orthodox rabbi with a PhD, I think, from one of the major English universities, Oxford. I think that's a pretty major English university. And Yitz is married, by the way, to Blue Greenberg. And Blue is in the vanguard of the women's movement in Orthodox Judaism. And I mean, they're both brilliant people and wonderful, caring human beings. Yitz came up with a term which is something like moments of religion. Everybody has moments of religion. We no longer have atheists and believers. We have all people on one continuum, and it's a continuum of moments of religion. The atheist has less. You know, the Orthodox Jew, obviously, to him has most. And why do we have moments of religion? Because of the Holocaust. And that's really where I have to bring this discussion. Because the discussion about God in the 21st century really hangs on how we deal with the situation of the Holocaust. People who have an awareness of the Holocaust, and it is highly problematic whether my grandchildren will. They're Jewish, but they will have a completely different experience. They may never meet a survivor. So to them, it's the same history as talking about the Revolutionary War.
Right, exactly.
But the Holocaust makes one ask the question, how can there be a God who has power and is considered good? And is considered good. How can God have permitted the Holocaust? Forget about hangnails. And almost everything else in life is hangnails after you talk about the Holocaust. Not just because it was 6 million Jews, but it was 12 million people who died in that war. How do you deal with that concept? How do you deal with innocents dying? And the 6 million were innocent. 1.5 million of them were children under the age of 10. How do you deal with God? They really, and Yitz is an Orthodox theologian, and Yitz says after the Holocaust you have to ask questions. You cannot deny that it raises questions about God. There may be answers, but there are questions. So while he is Orthodox enough to say everybody's on the spectrum, he's liberal enough to say, but everybody has questions. And everybody has moments when they just can't believe. But he'll contend that you have moments. Starting with Tillich, there is a concept of finitude in religion. Finitude simply means that we are limited. The most major manifestation of limitation is death. But we are also limited by the fact that we only have 2 arms, we only have 2 eyes, we only have, wow, I'm going to die. I don't have forever to accomplish everything that I might wish to accomplish, see everything I want to accomplish. We deal with finitude according to Alvin Reines, is the definition of religion. Reines said that religion was the authentic response of the individual to their state of being finite. Only one answer is provided by God, but it's the big one. I would suggest that many people came to a notion of God because they wanted to think that there was something in this world that was eternal. And that if they associated with that thing that was eternal, they gained eternal value for their being.